Hello and welcome to Take a Beat. My name is Tirza and I am the digital pastor here at IES. And today, for this episode, we're doing something just a little bit different. So we just did a send-off for Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi. And so we wanted to do a countdown and look back over the last 4 seasons of Take a Beat and see some of the things that they have shared with us through all of the different episodes that they've been in. And so our team, by the way, today, you can't see what I see, but we have a team of all female podcast the team. So this is why probably I'm very relaxed. But we went and just kind of picked some of our favorite Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi episodes. And these are not like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi. So it will be like maybe just one with Sister Gigi or one with Pastor Dave, or maybe one where they are together. So yes, this is today's Take a Beat. So we invite you to take a little break and talk about things that matter, only to launch ourselves back on the beat. So let's start with number 5 on our list of top 5 favorite Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi episode. And this one is all the way from season 1. Season 1 was back in 2023. And it is the 24th anniversary special, What's Next for IES. And so I got to sit and chat with Pastor Dave, and there are a lot of things that he talked about that is actually have come to fruition now as he is retiring. But there are a couple of things that for me stood out from our conversation then. The first one is when he said, no one is replacing him. So Pastor Dave was explaining that the next lead pastor isn't being hired to become another Pastor Dave, and that the next leader will have different strengths, perspectives, and personality traits, and the goal isn't to duplicate Pastor Dave. And that is what it looks like to have faithful leadership for the next season of IES. Another thing actually that Pastor Dave brought up was that family values outlive the people who introduce them. So that's definitely very interesting. So we actually want you to see a little clip from this episode. I know that some people have asked this, but for the new pastor, are we looking for someone who's exactly like you?
Yeah, so this is really important, and this is what people need to understand. Experience tells us that a lot of the culture of the church is shaped by the culture of the pastor, or the shape of the pastor. And my shape is round, by the way. All right? And so the tendency is in everything, and this has nothing to do with just churches. I was involved in helping schools select head of school or different things like that. The tendency is to swing the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And that's always a bad idea. And so I think that the deacon boards understand that. It's something we've talked about. It's something that the consultants do. This is what everybody needs to understand. Nobody is replacing me. Mm-hmm. The person who's going to come in is going to be the next leader of IES. There are probably some characteristics that I have that they will share. Mm-hmm. There are other characteristics that they may be quite different, but there are certain broad areas. IES is not going to change its basic structure. So we talk about transparency and accountability. They've got to be willing to do that. And if they're not willing to do that, then they're not going to be considered. A church that cares very much about sharing the gospel with people, they've got to believe in that. And they've got to believe that the church people are empowered to be involved in this. Mm-hmm. And people who aren't willing to do that, then they're not going to fit in IES. But, it could be somebody who wants IES to be a big church. Mm-hmm. It could be somebody who wants IES to be more artistic. It could be, there could be a lot of different things that they want. And those are not bad things or good things. They would just be maybe a little bit different from me, but they wouldn't be that much different from me.
All right. So, number 4, we have this one is from season 3. Season 3 is when we're in the blue room. And this is episode 33, where we had, well, Pastor Dave just had a live Q&A, I think a couple weekends before that. And then we sat with Pastor Dave and did more of an extended Q&A about specific topics that came out during those live Q&A. And the topic for episode 33 was adultery. And that was very interesting conversation. And I love that when we talked to PD about it, he kept on coming back to this question: who gets to decide what's right, God or us? And that's, I mean, I think I don't know if he was caffeinated or not in that during that episode, but he didn't pull any punches for that episode. And I think also, like, when we talk about that whole, it's sort of like not asking, but wanting the license to be able to do whatever I want.
Right.
And for me, when I think about that, and as you were explaining in my head, I was like, that means for us, when we think about it in that way, then God's not God, we're God.
Right.
We're treating ourselves like we're the ones who
Right.
get to do whatever.
Or God's rules count for everybody but me because I'm special.
The exception to the rule.
And so that's kind of the thing here. And actually, what you're dealing with is it's not just about sex.
Yeah.
There will be people who will argue it's okay to lie. And sometimes it just blows my mind. I talk to people and they'll say, "So, well, what should I say if somebody says this like this?" And I'll say, "Well, you can't lie. You just have to tell the truth." And they're like, "What? What?" I've had people ask me, "Oh, when we talk to our Father, we always tell him lies because I don't know. That's okay, right?" No, taking things that don't belong to you. Being unkind to other people, lying, those are all wrong. And people just begin to believe that they can just do whatever they want. And that is, in fact, the definition of being human.
Yeah.
When we talk about original sin, that doesn't mean that because Adam took a durian fruit from his wife and ate on it or whatever fruit it was, that now because of that one chomp that he made, we're all stuck somehow, through our DNA, through our bloodstream is this, sneaky thing. No. It's just this. That's what it means to be human, is that we're going to get tempted, and many of the times we'll submit to temptation.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's not just that only area, but it is definitely in that area too.
And I think another thing that stood out to us and our team about that episode is this whole idea of, like, the question that people ask is not simply, did I cross the line, or how far is too far? But the question that we need to be asking is, which direction am I moving? So let's take a little look at that season 3, episode 33.
We need to decide for ourselves, what kind of person are we? Are we the kind of person that is going to allow things to be in this twilight zone, gray zone? Are we going to be people who are faithful? And that's it. That's a decision we have to make.
So I think for that one of my favorite quotes that Pastor Dave said was this: it's not just about sexual faithfulness. God wants us to be faithful in every way. That's something to write down. Well, in number 3, we have season 2, episode 29. Is dating biblical? This is actually there's 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. And here in both parts, we sit down with both Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi, and we talk about this question: is dating even biblical? And we put yeah, so we talk about this, but number three favorite is part two, and number two favorite is part one. But I think in part two, some of the takeaways, I think this is something that Pastor Dave talks about a lot um, throughout the years. And so I think one of the things that actually kind of resurfaced in this podcast episode is that there is no such thing as a soulmate. And so there's a lot of people in this world looking for the one and trying to figure out how it is that they can place themselves in situations where they can find the one. And both PD and Sister Gigi explains that because we believe God guides relationships, we are the ones who become the one once we commit to someone. And so that's interesting. Next question. If God has prepared a spouse for us, does that count as soulmates?
No, there are no soulmates. There's no such thing as soulmates. So we believe that this is what I believe, that God has a plan and purpose for our life that is always about who we are. It's not about anything like that. It's not about so do I know, do I understand that God saw in his plan in my life and my wife's life that we would end up being married? Yes. Did he do things to help us so that we would be better in that? Did he bring our lives together? Yes. Could we have somehow, for one reason or another, ended up married to different people? Yes. Could we have been happy in those relationships? Yes. But I'm completely convinced that for me to marry Gigi was a godly thing and a wonderful thing. But that didn't make her my soulmate. In fact, we're really, really, really very different. Well, I won't tell you the whole story, but part of my experience the last 2 days, I was at a bunch of meetings in Hong Kong. And part of my experience to be there was to go to a place where it turned out she and I were there at the same time. We didn't know each other yet. And that's really special to me uh, for some very strange reasons. One of them was when I was there at that season for 6 weeks, a guy prophesied and said, I'm going to marry somebody who's in Hong Kong at the time. And I just laughed because IS is a nonprofit organization. I just laughed and everything else. And years later, when I met her and we're talking about different things, I already knew how I felt about her. We're talking about different things. And I found out she was there. And we would have been in that coffee shop at the same time.
Sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
No.
But it was very
Make a
meaningful to
Korean
me.
drama out of it.
Yeah, it's very meaningful. That was our cute meet
Meet
cute. Yeah.
Okay.
There are no such things as soulmates.
And I think another thing that I think personally for me is very like leaves a mark is when they said that shared faith matters more than chemistry. In a world that is very, very focused on chemistry and romance and a meet cute or just everything that, like the planets aligning and things like that. Shared faith matters more than chemistry. So let's actually take a little time and look at excerpt from that episode.
You need to understand that this is not religious snobbery. Having a faith that you share is fundamental in building a happy marriage. There are many people who have good and happy marriages who don't share faith. There are also people who fall down cliffs and don't die, but don't jump off a cliff just because there's something like that.
And don't go anywhere close to a cliff.
Yeah, right.
So I actually want to share like one of the quotes that was in that episode was that some of the loneliest people I know are married and some of the happiest people I know are single. And they're talking about how loneliness is not solved by a relationship. Also, this one quote is very, very interesting. If you can't commit to people, stop involving yourself in other people's hearts. Yeah. So let's take a look at number 2. Our top 5 favorite Pastor Dave and Gigi episodes. Number 2 is season 2, episode 28 is Dating Biblical Part 1. And I think right off of the gate, they talked about how dating isn't in the Bible. You can't find ways that, like, Abraham dated, or, and even the courtship is weird. But they talk about how dating isn't in the Bible, but wisdom is. And so there's no blueprint for modern dating in the Bible. Instead, Christians should focus on values like integrity and honesty and intentionality. And so why don't we take a look at an excerpt from that episode?
Dating per se. There's no scripture that you can say, oh, this is about dating. But I think if you talk about godly dating, which I think would be the biblical term for it, is that when you're dating, you need to set boundaries. So, so it's always good. You know, in Asia, dating is different from the West. When we talk about dating in the West, it's not particularly, say, exclusive. You can be dating several people at the same time. But in Asia, when you're dating, you're pretty much dating that one person. So let me speak from the Asian perspective and also the Western perspective. I think any kind of dating should have boundaries, especially if you're dating somebody, if you are a believer and you're dating somebody who is not. I think you always have to have, you want to know what the expectations are, what the other person expects from you when it comes to dating. How far do you go? Do you kiss on your first date? Things like that. Yeah, I know, right? In Korean drama, you don't even kiss until episode 13. So why would you kiss anyway?
When somebody
Until
says,
That's
I
just a
like you,
side
I really
comment.
like you.
Yeah, that's just a side comment. But I think it's always about boundaries and expectations. I'm all for dating. I'm all for dating. Dating in terms of meeting people, getting to know them, not particularly like exclusive right away. Um, and so I think those things are a good idea. Now, when you've dated a few times, like for instance, you've dated a person several times, then you can sort of say, okay, I'm going to just date this person exclusively. But I think to me, biblical dating means you have to articulate boundaries. I mean, let's talk, I mean, dating, of course, it includes holding hands, or I don't know. That was the dating too. But things like that. I think you need to articulate what your expectation is to the person you're dating and vice versa. And it's always good to have you to understand before you date what are the things you're really expecting. Yeah.
So, actually, for that episode, my favorite quote was from Pastor Dave. He said this: "The guy is never going to be better than he is right now. He is trying to win you." Okay, so we are down to our number 1 top favorite Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi episode from Take a Beat. And it is from season 2. Wow, season 2 has really good episodes. Season 2, episode 21, and we're talking about emotions. We were going through this series with Change and Changing, and we're looking at how God transforms us in our emotions. And this was no PD, only Sister Gigi conversation. And I can tell you, I remember like sitting and talking to her, and I had tears down my face. I feel like, I feel like almost every time it's just a conversation with her, or it's a conversation with her and on Take a Beat, and I just have tears all the time. But She talks about how, actually, this is good. Feelings make good indicators, but poor drivers. It's not, the problem is not, she said, having emotions. The problem is allowing emotions to dictate our behavior. She talks about how feelings can reveal what's happening inside us, but they shouldn't become the basis for every decision. And I think personally that really, really spoke to me. But I think she talks about it way better than I do. So let's take a look at an excerpt from that episode.
I think feelings are good. You know, God created us as emotional beings. So part of that creation, which is a good thing because the Bible talks about that we are created in his image. And part of that image of God is our emotions, our feelings. So it's good because that's how God created us. It's patterned after who he is. The only thing that's not good about feelings is when feelings drive our actions. And unfortunately, sometimes when we come from a feeling of hurt and despair and anger, and that's what drives our action, then that's the part that's not good about emotions or feelings. But feelings itself, it's a good thing, you know. I feel every day.
I think for me, one of my favorite quotes, there's quite a few from this episode, but one of my favorite quotes is this: the mind direct the feelings, and the feelings influence the actions.
Ask the Lord, how do I change my actions based on what is a feeling that is good, not feeling what is bad
Yeah.
or negative. Yeah,
And we can control our actions.
that's right.
And
And we can control our feelings. Yeah, I think the first thing is what you put in your mind, and then what's in your mind. It should be your mind directs your feelings, and then from that comes your action.
yeah, so we're talking about a renewal of the mind that leads to renewed emotions. Yeah, so those are our top five Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi episodes on Take a Beat. As we say so long to them, we appreciate their wisdom and all of the things that they share in our lives, in our podcast. And so, again, thank you so much, Pastor Dave and Sister Gigi. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week for another episode of Take a Beat. Don't miss a beat.